When I was around 4 years old, one afternoon on a weekend, my mom called me into her office to help her sort out some old photo albums. Kind of like a fun scrapbooking activity. We pasted in tons of old photos from different vacations and events. But then somewhere in the middle of this process, I came across this really interesting photograph. And I'll never forget the confusion I had in my mind when I saw this picture. It was a simple picture of my grandmother sitting in front of a plain backdrop, smiling. Well, it was actually quite creepy at the time for me. The thing was, the photo was in black and white. And this was the first time I had seen any picture like that. My first thought was, how did this even happen? There's no color and she's smiling and happy about it. And being 4, the only logical idea I could think of was this. Was it possible that color didn't even exist back then? Color plays an important role in the world we live in. Each color, on a huge spectrum of shades, appeals to our eyes in a distinct and unique way. It persuades our thinking and emotion, often without our knowledge. It is even an abstract language of communication which all human beings understand. They all represent different things. It's a part of our identity and preference. We all favor colors, which many psychologists say represent our personality. Now imagine that none of it existed. Just black and white, filled in with millions of shades of mind-numbing grays. No more colorful stationery shelves, lined with different dark and bright hues of markers, colored pencils, paints, crowns, and posters, used to capture our wildest imaginations and form of creativity. Just rows of standardized slimy gray ink. No more vivid rainbows to paint the sky. Instead, just strips of gray, or perhaps even nothing to fill in this concept. No more green grass, blue skies and oceans, red apples, yellow sunshine, or even oranges. Just millions of different blurs of grays to define basic shapes and objects. But this picture wouldn't be entirely accurate, since technically, black, white, and gray can be considered colors too. So actually, a world with no color could be some sort of void with no explainable answer. Yet this topic about whether black and white are colors is debated on. According to a website called Color Matters, a scientist who considers light as a color as a result of light would say that black is not a color. When there is no light, everything is black. And therefore, there are no photons of light in order to see pigmentations responsible for color. And a scientist would say that white is a color, because white light composes of 7 different colors. But on the other hand, you have an artist who considers color as a result of pigmentation. An artist would say that black is a color, because when the 3 primary colors are mixed together, the result is black. And they would say that white is not a color, because technically, you can't mix any colors to create white, and therefore, is actually the absence of color in the strictest sense of definition. But considering all of this, there's even another philosophical theory. Maybe since black absorbs all 7 colors of white light, black is the most colorful color, and therefore, white is the least colorful color. But since the absence of colors has always been portrayed using black, white, and gray representations, we'll have to assume this would be the outcome of the world if it had no color. The first question that would actually have to be answered to seriously consider this phenomenon is, how would humans even come to the point where they couldn't differentiate between hues? There are various concepts that have been thought of to explain this. And again, according to a website called Color Matters, majority of them lie in color theory, which contains definitions, design applications, and different concepts, enough to fill several encyclopedias. However, we can broadly classify all of these things into 3 categories. The color wheel, which describes how colors are placed in terms of vibrancy. Color harmony, which describes how we pair colors together in order to please the human eye, using 3 methods: monochromatic, adjacent, and complementary. And finally, the context of how colors are used. For example, using red to signify the importance of a for sale sign. They all generate ideas about how our world works with colors and how we see them. There are many theories that result from this regarding a world with no color. But none of the ideas actually ever thought of in history are likely to occur, such as light receptors within the human eye evolving to function differently. And this is just one of the many crazy ideas. So there actually is no need to panic about never seeing colors again, because there actually is no currently logical explanation to this. We are not at a point in time where we can find evidence for these things, or simply there is no evidence because it is not probable. Even though it is very unlikely to occur, it is a strange thought to think of our world in the absence of the 10 million different colors our human eye can see. And so this does raise a lot of scientific questions about the human perception of color. The next question that would have to be answered is whether the concept of color disappears from our minds or the actual working of color disappears from the world. If we just forgot color, say, one day, the effects wouldn't be so sinister. Of course, there would be chaos and human life would have to change. But if color actually disappeared from the entire world, the entire workings of our planet would have to completely shift. And therefore, I'm looking at more of the aspect of a world without the basic idea of color. Now, having answered all questions that arise from this topic, let's just imagine that overnight, all color vanished from existence. The first thing that would happen is fear, chaos, and a pandemonium resulting from fear and confusion, of a complete breakdown of basic civil behavior as we know it. I personally doubt that the governments of the world would be able to pull through and maintain order and discipline. We'd all be like panicky savages in a cheesy black and white movie. One thing for sure is that our current life could not carry on as before. First of all, there will be many transportation-related accidents. Remember, all color has suddenly disappeared overnight, and currently, many air traffic control systems rely on color. Planes would be crashing all around due to communication system failure, or simple shock in response to crisis. Traffic lights will become useless, and even red and orange bumps along road paths wouldn't reflect light and direct drivers along the path at night. Second, the abstract language of color and its representation will become obsolete. Gold wouldn't mean first, silver wouldn't mean second, and bronze wouldn't mean third. And I know this is important for some of you. Green wouldn't mean nature or envy. Yellow wouldn't mean happiness or caution. Red wouldn't be able to display power or importance. And most interestingly, pink and blue wouldn't have their stereotypical gender significance. My third thought is that many forms of art become abandoned or unpracticed and not be able to continue on. Activities such as fashion, photography, architecture, and art itself will lose a key component of what makes them distinctive and unique. We wouldn't have colorful stationery or art supplies even. And culture, history, and language would lose significant features. The works of various scientists throughout history would go up in smoke and become useless. The phrase, "a picture is worth 1,000 words," created in the early 20th century, just wouldn't make sense anymore. My fourth point is that many people will go insane and lose their sanity. We as humans find stability from things that are certain. What would happen to you if the thing that made you feel happy, safe, special, and secure suddenly disappeared? This is actually the aftermath of my previous point. Our human life would change so drastically that some of us might not be able to take it. And finally, plants contain chlorophyll for photosynthesis. The reason chlorophyll is green is because it absorbs the color green and white light. It reflects the color green and white light and absorbs the other 6 colors. But now that the world has no color, photosynthesis, which needs light energy to occur, would not take place. This would affect the entire food chain as the producers die off. Suddenly this would affect the herbivores and the carnivores, and we as humans will ultimately have no means of nutrition. Now, as I said before, we're all panicky savages in a cheesy black and white movie, which leads me to believe this crisis could result in cannibalism. But none of the above might even happen, since without photosynthesis, there's no oxygen being produced. We'd all suffocate and die instead. Who would have thought that something as simple as color could determine our life on human Earth? Color is something that is quite strange, beautiful, and mysterious. So to end this talk, I'd like to show you a few quotes that capture the essence of color. Not that. Our world is full of beauty. It's just that some people can't see it. Take a moment to live your life and take in all the colors of the world. I found I could say things with colors and shapes that I couldn't say any other way. Things I had no words for. Georgia O'Keeffe. Don't just live a life of black and white when there's a spectrum of colors available for you. Don't confine yourself. Instead, express yourself and have some fun. Ruby Yan. Thank you.